Hey everyone, I am here with you on AMI day 12, and I'm actually about to interview my dad via Zoom, and I wanted to show you guys one way that you can do this. This is the way that I've chosen. So it looks like he's waiting for me right now, and let's see if he's gonna show his. Can you hear me, Dad? Say hi. Okay, so kids, there's multiple ways that you can do this. So I'm actually going to record my screen. And I'm taking notes. I've got my journal. Where am I? And I've got pen, but I'm also going to record this on a voice memo so that if something goes wrong with the technology, I still have the audio. And I don't know if you can see this, but there's a little app. If you guys have an iPhone, there's an app here called Voice Memo.
Right.
And you can click on it, and I'm going to go ahead and start recording this way. So here we are, and hi, Dad.
Hi.
How about any other events that you remember as being really impacting? Most important moments in your childhood?
There is a incident that took place when I was in the 6th grade that is very clear in my memory, and I think there's a couple of learning points in it for me that I have clung to these years. But school was out, and I was waiting on the bus, and one of my classmates was picking on one of my other classmates, kind of a diminutive little guy, and he was being bullied in today's vernacular. And I stood up for this classmate, and it resulted in my other classmate engaging me in an altercation. He threw the first blow and struck me, and we ended up on the ground fighting, and the monitor for the schoolyard separated us and marched us into the principal's office. And sitting there before the principal, I was pretty emotional. I had not ever been. That afternoon, my classmate who started the fight and was the one that was doing the bullying took full responsibility for what had transpired. And that just made an impression on me. He very easily could, we both could have gotten in serious trouble. He could have shifted the blame to me, but even though he was in the wrong for bullying and starting the fight, he took full responsibility for that, and I admired him for that. But in hindsight, I'm also proud of the fact that I stood up for somebody that was being taken advantage of. And as an adult now, when I see and read about incidents of bullying that takes place with children, it just breaks my heart. And I hope that there are people around that that will step in and stand up for the guy that's getting bullied by someone. I don't know to what degree that shaped me, but it's a moment in my childhood that stands out clear as a bell. I can count that as my third, but my third really was more of a process than it was an event. But because of my parents' involvement in my life, I was involved in absolutely everything our church had to offer for young people, and that shaped who I am today, being involved in the boys' mission organization, participating in Sunday school, being involved in children's choirs, and learning to worship God through music. We all of that exposure that I had through the church, that process is how I became who I am today, and I wouldn't trade that for anything.
And that would probably be a good segue to the most influential people in your early childhood life. And it doesn't make you describe 3 or 4. It's kind of like in general.
Yeah. Well, by far the most influential person in my life was my dad. When I was a little boy, he was my hero just simply because he was my dad, and that's the way little boys think. And I'm glad I had a dad that I could view as a hero. But because he was a coach, his life revolved around sports. And athlete my dad had been, that made him my my hero even more. And there's a picture of my dad and my mom. But as I got older, I saw my dad's values and his lifestyle, the way he treated my mother. And he just became not only my hero, but the role model for the man that I wanted to become. He had a high level of involvement in the church. He practiced good stewardship of the resources that God had given, and he treated my mom with love and respect. And he's just the man that I wanted to be, and I love him very much and miss him today, but I thank God for him.
Anyone else? Or I don't want to cut you off if you're not finished with your, and then maybe in the next question, I don't know if it'll come up more people, but the early dreams you had, do you remember having desires and dreams when you were younger? I feel like definitely the professional baseball player is every young boy's dream at some point. Did you have that too?
I'm glad you mentioned that, because of the questions you've asked, this was the one I was probably least comfortable answering, because I don't really remember much about having dreams and aspirations other than my life revolved around sports, and I thought it was feasible for me to be a professional athlete. And I was not only going to be a professional athlete, I was going to be a multi-sport professional athlete.
Oh, and, like Michael Jordan.
Yes, but there actually was a guy from Arkansas that played for the Chicago Cubs in baseball, but he was a standout basketball player for Ole Miss and a baseball player, and he went on to a successful baseball career. But he was my height, and he played shortstop, and that's what I wanted to do, is to play baseball and basketball. And I don't remember having dreams or aspirations other than things related to sports. And it was much later in life before I transitioned to wanting to be a coach. But I realized by the time I was a senior in high school that I did not have the ability or the desire to be a coach. And I'm glad that I gave up that dream, and others gave up on me for the dream of being a professional athlete. That became clear as well. So.
That's funny. So we're concluding our interview with Mr. David Ross, who is my dad. And he was the first person I thought of when I had the chance to interview someone in my life. He has a great story to tell. And today, say hi, Dad. Wave. Can you hear me? Wave. Oh, he was waving. So this is just one of the many ways that you can do recording. Just like we've been Zooming, you can Zoom with your relatives. I know we're in quarantine, so if you're wanting to interview a grandparent, you can do this if you have a device, and this works. You can record it, and I also recorded it while it was happening on a voice memo. So thanks, Dad. Do you have anything for the students other than?
I think you have a great teacher, and I hope that you're listening to her and following her instruction. She's a sweetheart.
And that's a wrap.